Hey there, parents. I hope you're having a great week as you continue to navigate this world with raising your children to be followers of Christ, and as we continue to learn and grow as parents and supporting one another. This week, kind of fast forward a little bit here, since there's a lot of chapters in this book, I went ahead and looked at chapters 3 and 4. And chapter 3 starts off just really asking the question, but why? And those of you who have had a toddler know that someone who's 3, 4, 5 years of age, even a little older, likes to ask why a lot. Why this? Why that? Why? And sometimes it even turns into a game. As students transition, chapter 3 talks about adolescence and just the abstract reasoning that comes when that adult thinking ability. As students grow and mature and children then go into adulthood, they're able to reason abstractly, but then also just this process of thinking that children need to go through. And what seems obvious to us, because we can think steps ahead, a lot of times our children cannot do that. The book talks about kind of a silly story with lawn mowing and dog poop and stuff. And so maybe you have a story from your childhood that maybe you were not maybe using abstract thinking that you'd want to share with the group, or maybe you've got something recently with your kids where you just left you scratching your head going, why did they do this? I was not expecting this. They were not thinking. And sometimes our students, our children can admit that. But ultimately, chapter 3, though, how do you help your child process information? I can speak to my own childhood. My dad often would say, when I would ask, how does a helicopter work? Or just some random question I would have, my dad would always go, well, Daniel, what do you think? And his goal was to exasperate me. No, his goal was to get me to think and process. And a lot of times our children, and I know I've sometimes gotten frustrated with my children, where they haven't thought through things. Actually last night in the car ride home from church on Wednesday night here, my son, we were talking about money and finances, and I talked about the cost of car insurance, and then that led to why you have to have car insurance and why that's a law. And then I explained that, like, if you get in an accident and you have a $30,000 car and somebody, let's say T-bones you and it's their fault, who's going to pay to fix the car? And he goes, well, that person can pay. Well, Mike said, if that person doesn't have insurance, they may not have enough money to pay to fix your $30,000 car. And then that led to, well, maybe, that person should just go to jail then if they don't have insurance. And I go, well, you'd hate to, if that was you, to have to go to jail because you just made a mistake. And then your family can't eat, and then you lose your job. All these kind of steps that an adult can go through, he hadn't thought through. And so it was kind of a fun conversation to have with him, to get him to kind of understand just the cost of things and why we have certain things. And some things can be a nuisance and a burden, like having to pay for car insurance, but are necessary things. And so how do you help your child process through information as they continue to move from concrete reasoning to abstract, easy for me to say, processing? Then as we transition to chapter 4, talks about another just important thing that I think we really struggle through as parents is, and I know we've been there too as children, is I'm so bored. I'm bored. This is boring. I don't want to do this. And I really thought it was helpful, the information they shared on page 50, a little bit more than halfway down. Let me read this for you. It says, halfway down it says, you see two major things happen in a teenage brain's reward system that can throw off the scorekeeping. First, research suggests that adolescents have a lower baseline level of the feel-good neurochemical dopamine. Second, dopamine release in response to experience is higher during the teenage years. So then they kind of explain that. What does that mean? It's teens have less dopamine naturally than adults, but when it is released, they feel the impact more powerfully. And so it says, wild, isn't it? According to a UCLA doctor, this can explain why teens may report feeling of bored unless they are engaged in some stimulating and novel activities. And so what I have heard a lot in youth ministry research is that more and more children have all these pre-programmed activities, and younger and younger and younger, and what used to be available for high school kids is now middle school, and what was middle school is now for grade school, and all this stuff is trickled down, and we talk about iPads and screen time and all these different things. And the challenge is that it's taking kids off, and I think in simple terms, off kind of the normal track of children getting bored, then forcing them to think and be creative and try to do things and come up with ideas on their own, which then release that dopamine. And what ends up happening is if we always create stimulating events for them to do, or we go to things or whatever, we're kind of circumventing that process by constantly providing for them. And so then they kind of get into situations where it's more of a crisis later in life because they haven't learned to go through the process of being bored and create, to abstract think, and to do things on their own. Chapter 4 really concludes with, do you make spending time together a priority, and how do you do that? The book really points out some great ideas of things, of some maybe new things to try, but that everything doesn't have to be a spending, go see a movie, go to a Cardinal game, go to Six Flags type of thing. It even talks about going and just, trying on other clothes or listening to different types of music. There's other things that you can do with your child, and a lot of times your child doesn't want to do something. And I even think about this. I know my wife and I love to camp. And so we're talking about a camping trip now summer, and our kids are always like, well, who's going to come on this camping trip, and what are we going to do? And a lot of times we're like, hey, we're adults. We're gonna go. We're gonna camp. We're gonna relax. We're gonna do some hiking. Those kind of things will be great. It'll be wonderful. Where our kids are probably going, like the book points out, we're doing the same thing. And so for them, it can be kind of be viewed with boring, where if they have a friend there or something that adds to some excitement and some unpredictability to that, maybe help get them out of that boredom and allow that dopamine to be released and them to experience something. And so I would encourage you, as the book does, to try something new in 24 hours, maybe this weekend or in the next week. And so a lot of great material here with some common things like the book talked about, like that why question and getting that reasoning and abstract thought going. And then also, I'm so bored. And so some great stuff that you guys can discuss this morning or today in your group. And so have a great week. Blessings to you. Continue to keep you guys in prayer. Really encourage you to kind of close in prayer as a group each week and just support and lift one another up, as we know some of us have awesome weeks with our kids and everything's just going great, and some of us maybe not so much. And so really want to encourage you to support and lift one another up as we continue to navigate this thing called parenting. And so blessings on your week. We will talk to you later. Bye.